Good morning, I'm Sheila Cast. We're on the record. What did you enjoy for breakfast today? Chances are you can thank a pollinator for providing some of that nutrition on your plate. Honeybees and other pollinators are responsible for 1 of every 3 bites of food we take, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. What happens if the food that insects need to survive is replaced by plants they can't eat? You can probably guess there is a direct correlation between the success insects have in the food chain and what ends up on your plate, or doesn't. In a few minutes, we'll hear about a program that mentors urban farmers. First, we'll hear from Doug Tallamy, who literally wrote the book on insects' dependence on native plants. It's called Bringing Nature Home, How You Can Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants, published first in 2007 and since updated and expanded. Tallamy is the T.A. Baker Professor of Agriculture in the Department of Entomology and Wildlife Ecology at the University of Delaware, where he has taught for more than 4 decades. A major focus of his research is better understanding the way insects interact with plants and how those interactions determine the diversity of animal communities. When we spoke in May, I asked Professor Tallamy to paint a picture for us of the loss we're facing of native plants and the wildlife that depends on them.
Okay, well, you can see that just in the headlines that appear all too frequently these days. It wasn't long ago we were reading about the insect apocalypse is here, talking about global insect decline, followed by the loss of birds. We've lost 3 billion breeding birds in North America in the last 50 years. That's almost a third of our North American bird population gone. Now the UN says, oh, well, 1 million species are gonna they say disappear, but what they mean is we will kill a million species probably in the next 20 years to extinction. And none of these headlines represent the future, or at least they don't represent a sustainable future. In other words, they're not options. We cannot allow these things to happen. So if we look at how we've done conservation in the past 100 years, we've preserved parks and national parks and put places aside and minimize our impact on them. But that's obviously not working. We still continually have tremendous biodiversity losses, not just in the US, but around the world. So we now need a new conservation model, and that is to do conservation in the parks, but also outside of the parks. And that's where any landowner, but particularly you and me are, as we own our little suburban yards, we are going to play a major part in the future of conservation. Because what we do on those yards, our plant choices on those yards, are going to determine whether we're enhancing local ecosystems or continue to destroy them.
Well, what specifically can people do to improve the ecology in their yard?
There's 4 things they can do. The first is to consider shrinking the area that you have in lawn. We have over 40 million acres of lawn in the US, and lawn is an ecological deadscape. So that's, if we shrink the area, then and put in productive plants. Remember, it's plants that are capturing energy from the sun and turning it into the food that then drives our food webs, supports the animals that run the ecosystems that support us. So the more plants we have that are generating food and then passing it on to animals, the better off we're going to be.
And let me interrupt, because the phrase ecological deadscape sounds really powerful, but I'm not sure I understand everything you imply in that.
Again, there are things that every landscape has to do. It's got to support a food web. Grass doesn't do that. It captures the energy from the sun, but nothing's eating it. So it's not supporting any of the life around us. We've got to sequester carbon every place we can, pull carbon out of the atmosphere, lock it up in the plant tissues, and then pump it into the ground. Grass is the very worst plant choice in terms of sequestering carbon. Our landscapes have to manage their watershed. Every landscape is in a watershed. Lawn is the worst thing you can do to a watershed. It destroys watersheds. We fill it full of pollutants and herbicides, create stormwater runoff with too much lawn. And the final thing that our yards have to do is support pollinators, as you mentioned in the beginning. And the way we treat our lawns these days. When you put a fertilizer on your lawn, there's a broadleaf herbicide in there that makes sure there's nothing but grass. So you have no clover, you have no dandelions. Those are the only things that help pollinators in lawn. And when you have that perfect lawn, you're helping no pollinators at all.
I interrupted you. You were telling us the 4 things we should do in our lawns. I didn't let you get very far in that list.
Well, they're related. We need to put plants in our yard that sequester carbon, that support food webs, that manage our watershed, and support pollinators. That's why plant choice is going to make the difference as to whether your yard is filling its ecological responsibilities or whether it's a drain on our local ecosystems.
That's University of Delaware Professor Doug Ptolemy. On the record on WYPR, I'm Sheila Cast. We're talking about the critical connection between native plants and insects and how to boost environmental health. It's all laid out in his book, Bringing Nature Home, How You Can Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants. Ptolemy is also the author of Nature's Best Hope, a new approach to conservation that starts in your yard, and The Nature of Oaks. So I want to get back to what you said about shrinking lawns. A well-groomed lawn is a status symbol for many Americans, especially in the suburbs. But as you say, shrink them, devote less land to them. What do you say to people who find that idea disturbing?
Well, notice I didn't say get rid of your lawn. And you're right, it is a status symbol. So I also didn't say stop mowing it or just let it go to seed. The lawn we keep should be manicured, and we can still have it as a status symbol. It's important that we tell our neighbors that we're good citizens and we're following the cultural norms. So I'm not suggesting that we stop that. I'm just suggesting we do it on less land. Again, 40 million acres, that's the size of New England dedicated to lawn that is not contributing in ecological ways. So that's step one that everybody can do, is reduce the area that's in lawn. The next most important thing, I think, is to provide the energy that supports the food web. Let's just talk about birds. 96% of our birds rear their young on insects. And most of those insects, it turns out, are caterpillars. So it takes over 10,000 caterpillars to make one clutch of chickadees to get them to independence. And chickadees are a tiny bird, third of an ounce. Wait a minute,
10,000?
10,000, right.
Oh my gosh.
So when you plant your crepe myrtle, which is from Asia, it's making no caterpillars. But if you plant an oak, in the mid-Atlantic states here, it supports 557 species of caterpillars. So there, big difference.
In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what about evolution? Wouldn't insects naturally learn to eat other plants in order to survive?
Not before they're dead. That's like saying to the monarch butterfly, okay, we're taking away your milkweed, which you're evolutionarily locked into eating, and we're going to give you crepe myrtle. Now you have to learn to eat it before you die. Good luck. And obviously that's not happening. A few years ago, we were down to 3.6% of the monarchs because we took away their host plant. In California, they've lost 99.9% of their monarchs because they've taken away the host plant. So adaptation does not happen fast enough to compensate for the drastic changes that we humans are imposing on these things. We're asking too much. Evolution does happen, but it's far too slow to correct for all the changes we're making.
I'm not sure I got an answer to what you say to people who are disturbed by your lawn advice of shrinking their lawns.
I would maintain that they're not going to be disturbed if we show them models of yards where there's less lawn, but it's manicured, it's well done, and the entire landscape is tastefully designed. I mean, the oak tree is a beautiful tree. It has been shown in the real estate business. If you have a large oak in your property, it boosts the sales by thousands of dollars of your land. So to put a powerhouse plant like that in your yard, it's not going to detract from it. Thomas Rainer is a landscape designer, and he says lawn should be an area rug, not wall-to-wall carpeting. And I completely agree with that.
So
Let me go further and answer your question again. What do I say to the person who says, I still want my big lawn? I would say, what you do on your property impacts everybody around you. Do you have the right to ruin my watershed? Do you have the right to kill all the pollinators that we depend on? Do you have the right to eliminate birds from North America? Do you have the right to not play your role in sequestering carbon, pulling it out of the atmosphere? And if they can say, no, I don't have to do that, well, then the argument's over. But I would say they have a basic responsibility. If you're going to quote, own a piece of the earth, you have to be a good steward of it. There's a responsibility that comes with that. It's not cost-free. We've been landscaping with only aesthetics in mind for the last century. We need to include ecological function now, and we need to do that because we're everywhere. Our human-dominated landscapes are pretty much everywhere. We can't go around destroying ecosystems everywhere and then saying, well, why are the birds disappearing? Why are the insects disappearing?
Where can Marylanders go to find out what is native to their area?
That is easy these days. There's a Maryland Native Plant Society would be a good place to start. But if you have a particular plant in mind and you're wondering, ask the Google. I mean, Google knows everything. USDA website has native and non-native listings. There's a website. The acronym is BONAP, BONAP, that tells you the range of every plant, both native and non-native in North America. So there's many ways to track this down. And if anybody's really stumped, send me a picture of it and I'll tell you whether it's native or not.
Well, you started an initiative called Homegrown National Park. Briefly tell us about that.
Yeah, well, years ago, I was pondering that huge amount of land we have in lawn and said, well, what would happen if we cut that area in half, that 40 million acres, cut it in half? That would give us 20 million acres that we're going to take out of lawn and plant in a responsible way. How big is 20 million acres? So I started to add up the major national parks in the country. And it's bigger than like the first 15 largest parks combined. So I said, well, gee, if we create this park at home, we can create a new national park that I'll call Homegrown National Park, and it'll be bigger than all the major national parks combined. So that's where the concept came about. But and I talked about it in my talks for years. But I met a woman, Michelle Alfonderi, who said, you've got to get beyond the choir here. You've got to reach the people who don't understand. And we need to make a website to do that. And we'll make it fun. We'll make a map. You can say, I'm going to join Homegrown National Park and get on the map and put down your location and the amount of area you're going to take out of lawn. And we can watch this restoration happen all over the U.S. as people light up the map. So it really was Michelle's brainchild in terms of creating the website.
Thank you so much for talking to us about this. Thanks.
You're quite welcome.
Doug Tallamy is the T.A. Baker Professor of Agriculture in the Department of Entomology and Wildlife Ecology at the University of Delaware. We spoke in May about his book, Bringing Nature Home, How You Can Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants. At the On the Record page at WYPR.org, we have links to more of Professor Tallamy's work and to information about Maryland's native plants. Quick break on the record, and then we'll hear about how the Black Butterfly Urban Farmer Academy is transforming land in Baltimore. This is Sheila Cass. Stay with us on the record.
This is the On the Record podcast, a service of your public radio, member-supported 88.1 WYPR. You can support this podcast and everything you hear from WYPR. Become a member. Come to WYPR.org and click the donate link.
Welcome back to On the Record. I'm Sheila Cast. We're talking today about the critical relationship between native plants and a healthy ecosystem. We just heard from Professor Doug Tallamy about his book, Bringing Nature Home, How You Can Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants. Now we'll broaden the terrain a bit to talk about the Black Butterfly Urban Farmer Academy. It's run by the Farm Alliance of Baltimore. In May, I spoke with the Alliance's Deputy Director, Denzel Mitchell. Before coming to the Farm Alliance, Mitchell operated 5Seeds Farm. He also founded the Greening and Nutrition Program at Baltimore Montessori Public Charter School. Mitchell is responsible for bringing a nearly forgotten heirloom, Baltimore's fish pepper, back to the Chesapeake region's culinary palate. I asked Denzel Mitchell to talk about what the Farm Alliance of Baltimore does and about his role in the organization.
Sure. The Farm Alliance is kind of a UN of Baltimore urban agriculture. We are a network organization with a membership of 19 farms, all within the city limits of Baltimore City, with the exception of one, which is a Great Kids Farm, which is owned and operated by Baltimore City Public Schools. And then I believe we have 6 community gardens now and a handful of individual members. And we work to push and advocate for the continued progression of urban agriculture through land usage, water usage and control, soil health initiatives, and micro scale sustainable ag education and production. I am the deputy director. This was a newly created position. I started in February of 2020, which seems like a lifetime ago now after the pandemic. And I am serving as the deputy director, which is kind of second in command under Maria Strauss, our illustrious, fearless executive director. And I work on member services and head up some of the programming and provide technical advice and assistance to our member farms.
How did the idea come about for the Black Butterfly Urban Farmer Academy?
It actually came from the farmers. As you mentioned, I am a recovering farmer, and I came through this network, this community. I started as a grower in Baltimore City. My family and I lived in Northeast Baltimore when the Farm Alliance was created, and from the very, very beginning of this kind of network, this community and this organization, we talked about the need for new farmers and training programs that were specifically focused on micro scale production. So the Farm Alliance, kind of fast forward 10 years to save some time, the Farm Alliance conducted a feasibility study in partnership with the Black Yield Institute. It was pretty resounding that farmers wanted a program to train new farmers, because as it is across the country, farmers are aging out, and farming is a highly technical profession that requires so many different layers of skill and experience. So the farming community said that this is something that they wanted. We wanted to do something that was very specifically focused in the city. So that's kind of where the idea came from.
And the name Black Butterfly comes from Professor Lawrence T. Brown's research and his book?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We all have been quite intrigued and appreciative of his work and his vigor around, bringing the economic and food apartheid issues in Baltimore City to bear. And we wanted to honor him and honor his work.
How many people will participate in this first cohort in the academy?
This first cohort will have 10 trainees.
And they're committing for a year?
Well, closer to 8 months. So it will be through the growing season. So from May to end of November.
That's Denzel Mitchell, Deputy Director of the Farm Alliance of Baltimore. On the record on WYPR, I'm Sheila Cast. We're talking about the group's new program, the Black Butterfly Urban Farmer Academy. What will participants learn in the academy?
So many things. We really want to give folks an overview of what does it mean to be a micro scale sustainable grower. So they're going to learn about cultivation, bed preparation, irrigation, crop choices, disease, pest, weed management, managing your own labor, as well as managing the labor of folks who are assisting you, business planning, farm planning, the different types of marketing. So whether that's selling to institutional buyers or restaurants or direct to consumer farmers markets or farm stands. Yeah, the full gamut. So we have 4 elements to the program. The first being 12 weeks of classroom sessions. This is about 24 hours of classroom time, and we're going to be using a curriculum out of the University of Santa Cruz, along with Leah Penniman's book, Farming While Black. Then there will be a field day component, which is essentially a field trip for farmers, where farmers show up and kind of see the successes of another farm at their site. And so we have 6 of those planned, and we got that part of it funded so that the farmers can be paid to host. And then we have 5 mentor farmers who will take on 2 trainees each, and then each trainee gets to spend 140 hours of what we call shoulder to shoulder work or farmer to farmer training, where they get to work with this experienced farmer and kind of see how they do things. And then we are building a demonstration farm down in South Baltimore, and each trainee is expected to spend about 20 hours over the course of the season with me at the training farm as we build that up. So then that opportunity kind of provides a snapshot into what it looks like to build a farm from brand new. And so this cohort, I believe is going to be pretty special.
And you mentioned a stipend for the farmers who'll be hosting these students, and the students themselves get a stipend, right?
Absolutely.
What is the charge of the newly trained farmers after this hands-on intensive time period when they're turned out into the world of urban agriculture?
We want to change the food system. I mean, that's kind of been my work for the last 10 years now is really to change the food system. We know that on so many different levels, the food system is broken. And there just need to be more educated people coming into the market space, in the workplace, and coming into the food system who want to make some change. And so, this provides an opportunity, one, for folks to kind of get a better understanding about what food production is and how you can create an enterprise out of it, or learn food production from this perspective and then go into other parts of the job market with just a better understanding of how to change, what has been problematic in our city and in our society. So I would love to see each of the trainees to work in the food system as farmers on whatever level they decide, or to work in the food system as food makers, now with this knowledge of what is required to leave the land in a better health than when we found it.
With all this going on, do you have time to do any gardening of your own?
Very little. I have a few pots on the deck, and we have a little plot in the backyard that me and my youngest son.
And what are you growing?
Tomatoes, fish peppers, of course, kale, herbs. What else have we got? And and we'll probably put some eggplant in, some Nadia eggplant. That's my favorite eggplant.
Sounds pretty yummy. Thank you.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
very much. Denzel Mitchell is Deputy Director of the Farm Alliance of Baltimore. We have more information about the Black Butterfly Urban Farmer Academy at the On the Record page at wypr.org. We spoke in May, just before the academy launched. I'm Sheila Cass. Thanks for being with us on The Record. Stay cool and join us again tomorrow.
thanks for listening to this segment of On the Record with Sheila Cast. You can catch the show on the radio Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 10 a.m. on 88.1 WYPR, your NPR news station. And you can support On the Record and all the other public radio programs that WYPR brings to you. Just click the donate link at the top of WYPR.org. And thanks.